At 6:33. Okay, we good, Brad? You ready to rumble? I'm going to start off here. Okay, I'm going to open the meeting. Item number 2, can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes of the Special Finance Committee meeting held on January 23rd,
So moved.
2018?
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Brad, you ready to rock and roll on? We're
I
gonna.
am.
Okay, number 3, we'll go over to January monthly reports, please.
January represents the third quarter of the fiscal year, the end of the third quarter of the fiscal year. Some of the key revenue items, general fund, sales tax, which was the reporting of October's activity. For the month, we received about a little more than $1.1 million. Was up comparative to the prior year by about $64,000, almost 6% increase. Year to date, our sales tax revenues were $10.5 million compared to $10.1 million last year, so up about $380,000 or about 4%. Our home rule sales tax was down slightly this year compared to last year, but that's largely due to the 2% administrative fee that was imposed as part of the state's 2018 budget that was not in the comparative number from last fiscal year. And so we were down for the month by about $4,000 or just slightly less than 1%. Year to date, we were about $4.2 million, slightly more than the prior year, about $29,000 ahead, or 0.7% ahead from the prior year. Property taxes are on track. Our overall collections on the 2016 tax bill, which were paid in 2017, are about 98%, I believe. And the analysis does not show any irregularities there. We're missing a page here in the copied report. So I'm sorry, I'm missing some information here. On income tax and
Just the last one's motor
January
fuel.
reporting challenge.
motor fuel.
High water mark.
Video gaming.
115.
Motor fuel tax for the month was, there's a page that's missing in between. Anyhow, motor fuel tax was about $125,000 for the month. Last year was $134,000, so it was down about $9,000. Year to date, just shy of $1.1 million has been received, and roughly the same as last year, ahead about $4,000 or 0.4%. As I've noted, it's kind of like for us that have a little age on us, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride from Disneyland. It up and down and all over the place, so very inconsistent for a number of years. Commuter parking, again, very small revenue source, but our space utilization has been down for the last several months. It was down again in January, and year to date is down about 2.5%. Not quite sure what is fueling that change. The next part of the report is the more graphical dashboard depicting the sales tax, income tax changes, and then comparative of the revenue and expenses, comparative for the current fiscal year to the prior fiscal year. And again, as I've mentioned before, the keynote is that to take away from the revenue and expense comparative is that the margin, the gap between the revenues and expenses has remained fairly consistent between the years. So everything is pretty much going according to plan. Then the next section is the trend line charts. Showing our sales tax revenues continue on an upward trend. Income taxes, kind of really overall the trend line is almost flat. We've been into a little bit of a slump here the last couple of months. Amusement tax, slight increase, partially driven by increased activity at the music theater, and also the fact in 2017 we increased the amusement tax. Hotel tax continues on an upward climb, although obviously December, January are kind of in the doldrums as far as activity is concerned. Then the next couple of sheets are the more detailed summary of the general fund, the departmental expenses, and the departmental revenue. And then the last sheet in the packet is just a summary of the impact fees that we have collected on behalf of other governments. And through the end of January, we have collected and dispersed almost $22 million to other taxing governments that also serve Tinley Park. And that is it.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Item number 4, we're going to discuss the Intergovernmental Risk Management Agency, IRMA, revoking notice. I'm going to let Dave go through that.
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Mangan. Over the last couple of years, we've been looking at a number of our professional services as well as other major contracts the village has, with really the goal of making sure that we're getting the best contract, best price in the marketplace. The contract we have for our liability and workers' compensation is actually one of our larger expenditures on an annual basis. And this is what we'd like to discuss tonight is kind of starting the process for looking at essentially getting bids to really see where we're at compared to what we get from IRMA. This is a very non-traditional process in terms of bidding. For one, IRMA is actually, I think as you all know, it's not really an insurance company. It's a pool. We've been part of a pool really over the last 45 years. We've been with IRMA since 1998, and before that there was a South Suburban pool that was established in the early 1980s. Going through the process of bidding out liability and workers' comp insurance requires comparisons not only to the types of insurance you're getting, the levels of insurance, requires expertise in terms of looking at loss runs and doing comparative analysis. And so I've done some analysis of, there was another community, Buffalo Grove, about 2 years ago that went through this with IRMA, and the process that they followed. IRMA, because they are a pool, does have a process that if you're going to withdraw from the organization, you do have to give notice. This gives them time to prepare. They do an annual bidding every year of their actual insurance that they do in the summer. So they want to know basically by the end of summer what communities are in, what communities are out. So essentially what Buffalo Grove did a couple of years ago is they essentially gave IRMA 9 months notice, which is required by their bylaws to give them notice. And by giving them that notice, that also gives us the ability to keep our excess reserves that are part of what the village maintains. And so the process would be, if the committee agrees, we would move this forward to the March 20th board meeting, where we would essentially give a notice to IRMA that would essentially be revocable if we decided after our review that we wanted to stay with IRMA. I've asked the IRMA executive director if we could have 5 months to essentially complete that analysis. So that would really take us to essentially to close to the end of August. They're actually having an executive board meeting tomorrow, so I think we'll have some indication whether that 5 months would be approved. After that, then what I would do is come back to the committee, and again, because of the types of work involved with this thing, Buffalo Grove went through this in other communities, we would need some outside assistance, and the key would be finding somebody who's obviously got expertise in dealing with large insurance contracts like this, but also importantly, somebody who's really just interested in assisting us with reviewing the process and making recommendations. For obvious reasons, we wouldn't want somebody who's interested in actually bidding on the insurance. We want somebody that's neutral and can kind of give us a third-party opinion. So, again, tonight's like the first night of that discussion. And, I will also tell you, there's also discussions in some of the communities in the west-northwest suburbs about an alternate pool to Irma that's in some of the early stages. I've had some discussions with some of the village managers in those communities, and they are open to adding other communities. Whether that would be done by the time we do our analysis, I can't say, but we'll certainly continue to look at that, and that could be a third option besides looking at private sector insurance. So really what I'm looking for tonight is just direction to move forward to the March 20th board meeting, essentially approving this notice to Irma of withdrawal with the ability to revoke this, hopefully 150 days, depending on what Irma approves for us.
The key here on a couple of things is, number one, that we're giving the time that we need. So, with the reserve, we want to make sure we give it enough time to be able to go through that. Number two, we want to make sure that we have enough time to really do the analysis that we need to do. So, these are bigger portions of our insurance cost in the village, based on the workman's comp and other things. So I think it's really important that we do go out to the market and be able to see kind of what
I
is
agree,
out in
Mike.
the market. We haven't done this in a while, and I think it's just an opportunity for us to just kind of make sure where Irma's at, from a standpoint.
I've just got a couple questions
Sure.
based on your, what did Buffalo Grove end up doing? Did they stay with Irma? Or
No, they actually left Irma.
Left Irma?
They're actually also looking at this pool too. They're in with Gallagher Bassett now, but they're also possibly looking at going in a pool with these other towns.
Do we know, did they save any money since they left, or it's too hard to compare?
They did initially.
Yeah, they did initially. Yeah,
I can't say that we
yeah,
could say that they did,
Yeah.
a couple of years down the road, but they did initially.
Yeah.
Then this independent pool, it's not established yet, this new one that's talking about in the north?
Yeah, they're still establishing bylaws. The unique thing about it is it's a number of communities, Elk Grove Village, Buffalo Grove, that are kind of mid to large size like us. And so I think, there could be some advantages to us. Obviously, it's still an early process and something I think we want to stay involved with, but it could certainly be another possibility.
And you'd be soliciting bids from them too?
Well, it depends on the timing.
They might not be. They might not be.
They might not. No, and it
Keep in
doesn't
mind-
mean,
Go
it doesn't mean at some point that you couldn't go back to them too. You could go back to them 2 or 3 years if they're not ready.
But with the workman's comp and these others, there is companies out there that work with municipalities that do a nice job of
Right.
what they do with them. So, I mean, we're the third biggest in Irma now, second biggest in Irma right now.
Okay. And then my third question is, if we decide, after we go through the investigations and, seeing if anybody fits our needs better and saves us money, or we're not gonna lose anything? There's no cost to checking it out? It sounds like you're asking them to say, hey, let us go look elsewhere, and we're not gonna lose our reserves, we're not gonna lose anything.
No, there's no financial penalties to do this. I went through this in Oak Brook about 11 years ago. It's at the end, the village decided to stay with Irma. It didn't change the premiums, didn't change anything like that. It was actually, though, we learned a lot, but I can tell you it's a very time-intensive process.
That's why it takes as long as it does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you only lose your reserve if you don't give the notice.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good with the 20th.
This will move from us to the board meeting. I just want to
Right.
get an approval from you guys to move it up to the board. So can I get a motion to take and move this to the board for the revoking notice?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any comments from the public?
Hey, Dave, how many insurance companies offer this type of insurance? It's workers' comp, what is it for our village employees and union employees, or what is?
Yeah, it's for
gets
all of our
covered?
village employees. I mean, there's two separate things. There's a workers' comp, and then there's a liability insurance for.
So how many different companies? I mean, when I read in the, what
Mhm.
you guys posted about the meeting, another consultant, it just blows my mind. How many different insurance companies are there that we can't contact them? I mean, I work for a company, I get what you're doing to want to compare. I don't understand why we're canceling ahead of time and all this, why we wouldn't just go out and look into the market. Is there how many different insurance companies are there? We don't just contact them, we have to hire a consultant to do it.
I don't know how many different companies are, but again, this isn't like kind of comparing homeowners insurance, stuff like that. We have a lot of different aspects to the insurance. You want to compare apples to apples, you might have one company that gives you, a $7 million cap, another might that give you a $5 million cap.
Sure.
You also have to compare, Irma has some services that they offer in terms of loss prevention. You want to make sure that there's something comparative in those private insurance. So,
Sure, I
and
get
plus
it.
you have to, the companies are going to want to bid, can all want to see your
But I mean,
loss
to
reports.
rush into this, to hire that, you're saying
Mhm.
you don't have the time to do this, I guess is what you're saying here, right? So want to
Well,
hire consultants to do this.
it's a time and an expertise
Because is
issue.
it a high premium? What is driving this? Why do you want to make this change?
Well, again, I don't think anybody said.
14, we went in 2014, right?
I don't think anybody's saying that they want to make the change. I think it's part of a
But
process.
in such a rush to
Well,
hire a consultant. You're saying that
okay.
we're in a hurry, we don't have time, we got to hire a consultant to look into this.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm saying it's a rush. I think basically what I said is that there's a timetable. Irma has bylaws that you have to give. Basically, it has to change at the end of the year, and you have to give 9 months' notice in order to do that. So we started talking about this internally about 6 months or so ago. So we've been doing some research on what other towns have done. And this process that we're following is similar to what Buffalo Grove and other communities have done. So I think it's just part of it. It's the right thing, I think, for a village of our size to do. This is a large part of our budget.
No,
And
I get it. I'm
we
not
may
saying
turn- it may turn out at the
anything
end of the
about
day,
comparing.
this might be the best.
But we just did it in 2014. So I'm
No.
just.
No.
Oh,
No,
was
we
it?
didn't.
No,
Oh, I
not
thought I
this.
read that we just had a
No.
new contract, and we did something in 2014, no?
The health insurance, I think.
This
yeah, that's
has not been done
Oh,
for.
when you
Yeah.
guys switched, okay, so that brings up a point. So what is the savings we are gonna see this year for the health insurance change? Or whatever, over what year? What is
Okay.
the change? What was
We
the?
hired a new broker in
I-
2014.
The health insurance
Yeah,
was done
yeah.
last year with me.
Yeah.
Right, with Mesro,
Right.
was that,
With
we went to
Mesro,
Mesro?
yes.
Okay.
That was
So,
a
So the
brokerage
Mesero
change.
is a three-year
I know, I
deal.
understand it, but what was the savings? made that
We
change
save $55,000 per
A year?
year for 3 years.
for the first 3
For the
years?
cost of what they charged us. It was
That-
$165,000. Now,
That
the
we're
cost
seeing
of
on the
that's-
bottom line?
That's not
Is
the
that what we're
cost of the
saying?
insurance, let's be clear.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying
It
that
was what the broker
savings to the
charged
village
us.
was 55,000?
And we went to a
To the
flat
bottom
fee.
line? Is that what we're saying?
That's what, yeah, my.
Per year
but-
we're
but-
saving?
Yeah,
Brad?
that was, again, with the health insurance, we just look at switching it.
This is a lot bigger of an
This is-
insurance than that.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that. I understand the insurance, I get that. What I'm saying is I
Yeah.
don't like that we're, again, hiring another consultant. We can't contact the insurance companies and have them give us bids.
For the
or
health insurance, we
look
didn't
at-
hire a
Or
consultant
any of
for that.
that? We can't do any of this ourselves? It just seems like we hire so many consultants and we spend so much money on it, and a lot of times you guys don't even use it. So I'm just curious why we can't, is there any step before hiring more consultants, is my
Well,
question.
As I've said, this is a complicated process. It's not just the time, it's a complexity. This has the potential of saving you a lot more money than you
No, I
ever
get that,
hired
but
a consultant.
I mean, you can't ask an insurance company, I mean, I'm asking, they don't do that? They give you a bid? That when you want to call Kemper and say, could you come in and tell us what you would do for us?
I don't think we're voting on hiring a consultant right now, are
Well,
we?
that's what was
No.
in the write-up,
No.
was that they
Yeah.
want to hire a consultant.
I think
All
what
we're doing
voting
on the
on-
vote today is asking to move it up to the board for the revoking notice, which in return has to be done now.
Okay,
because
well,
it
that's
has
fine,
to
I'm
be
not,
approved
you
in
guys
March.
already, I can't say anything, you already voted on that anyway. What I'm asking now is a different,
Yeah, that will be coming back to the
the.
committee, the discussion of the.
And there is
But I know
other-
you're gonna, yeah, okay.
There's
And I
other-
just hope, because, here's my thing, when I'm reading all these articles about Mesro Financial, And then all of a sudden, here we are, we changed to one, now we're gonna do these consultants. If we spend all this money on consultants and then go to Mesro, which is all these articles that have been out there for the last 5 years, it's gonna, to me, that's a big waste of our taxpayers' dollar, if that's where we're gonna end up anyway. And that's all I'm saying. And I just wish we could somehow stop hiring consultants and be able to do something here, get people in place to do some of this stuff. It just, I don't get it. And I'd like to understand, and Brad, maybe I'll contact you on this. I want the savings on this, because that's what I want to start seeing. All these things we keep doing, I want to see the savings. Are we really saving some of this? Because some of the changes they've made, we're not.
This is actually part of a process to determine if we can garner any savings.
That's the first step.
Unless we follow the steps of the process.
No, I get
We kind
that.
of shoot ourselves in the foot. So we have to do this first step. And as Dave was saying, it's very the insurance market is very technical, and we need somebody to help us to make sure that what we're looking at are apples to apples comparisons and not what the
I didn't even know there was consultants for insurance. I've never heard of that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I understand the 5 months to give the notice to Irma. So when it does go out to RFQ, approximately what is the cost for that RFQ for an insurance consultant?
I'll bring that back to the committee when we're discussing that in a month or so.
Approximate cost? Guess?
If I
Any idea?
say
Did
that and
Buffalo
it's
Grove
wrong-
tell you?
Huh?
Did Buffalo Grove tell you what it cost them to?
Yeah, but it was a
hire
couple of
them?
years ago, so we'll come back in about a month and.
50,000, 100,000?
No, it's not going to be that much, no.
Okay.
No.
I'm going to ask that you put it off for a year. I understand the reasoning that you need to notify Irma the 5 months to stay within their guidelines and their rules and their laws. But whatever amount you're going to spend on a consultant can go towards police. Sending this out to Irma is not imperative to the village.
It is.
It's not vital to the
It is.
village. So you're saying that's more
Because
important
here's
than
why.
hiring police
No,
officers?
I'm not saying that.
Workman's
That's
comp.
words you're putting words in my mouth. If we go out and we're able to save money for the village, that in return can be used for police officers.
So
The
is
bottom
that
line is, he is.
$165,000
Can I
gonna
just
go to
finish?
hire a
'Cause I
cop?
listen to you. Let me finish. He is saying, we will come back to you on the cost of that. We have not had any discussion on that. This is the first step. The next step, we will come back and go over it with you. The first step is to revoke it because there is a time frame to make sure that the reserves that we have with Irma, we make sure that by giving this notice, we hit the timetable that they need to do. The bottom line with this is when Buffalo Grove did it, it was a pretty extensive amount of money they saved. And the bottom line with it is we don't know that, but we should look at it. And I think it's critical for the village that we look at this when we haven't looked at it for a while. These costs to the village are extensive per year. They're extensive. And it's critical that we look at that.
So is the lack of police.
I'm not arguing that.
It's critical, and I believe it's more critical than sending this out to a consultant, whatever length of time, 5, 6 months from now. And I understand it can save us money, but that's down the line. We have to look at now. We have to look at right now. Out on the wall, there's a list up to 100 men and women who have signed up, passed the test to be police officers. They're here. We need to find the money. And I don't think we should be spending money on a consultant, even though later it may save us money. I think this is far too critical at this point that every penny goes to hiring police officers. Every cent we can save needs to go towards that. And I'm going to bet you that the vast majority of residents would agree with me. So much so that we'll create a poll for you on Facebook. Lots of different pages. We'll put it out there, and I'll email it to every single board member and let you know that I'm going to bet it's going to be 95% plus is going to say every penny goes to hiring cops.
If I could just real quick chime in, I think all we're doing is getting that opportunity to shop it. we don't necessarily have to hire a consultant. If we get numbers and you know, Irma's way above, you don't even have to hire a consultant. You could just say it's not going anywhere. But if you get numbers that are better, that are a cost savings, when you hire a police officer, whether you want to or not, it's not a one-year thing. They're generally here until they retire. I was at the orientation. I saw those people. They were great people that I you know, the more the better. But, you know, anytime you do anything, you've got to take money from here to spend over there. And it's one of competing priorities. No doubt, police are extremely important. Safety is number one. We've, you know, kind of said that all along. But, you know, this is the way to see if there's some savings someplace to do the things you're talking about.
But kind of saying it all along, there's no follow-through. There's been no further discussion. This has been discussed for years, and yet we're
I think
still.
last meeting we got back the study, the police
Right.
staffing study, and
Right.
and
And
we're
I
gonna
read
be
the full
talking about it
study.
soon.
The thing that jumped out at me was that Tinley Park is woefully understaffed.
Well, they used some numbers to come up with things, and there's no question. I think everybody here would like to have as many police as they could on the street to keep everybody safe. But you have to look at what's needed, what's available, and it's probably not just like snap your fingers and you got 13 new officers. We've
Of
got
course not.
civil service and all the rest. But I think we're working towards what you're looking for. It's just not going to happen instantly. It's a process.
And I understand that, and I appreciate it. But I think every committee meeting, every board meeting, there's money just flowing out. And a lot of times it seems like a waste, or it's not the top priority. That it's things that, and I understand infrastructure and in every other aspect that's required to run a village. I get it. I mean, if you look at an average Saturday in Tinley Park, you can have the farmer's market, you can have a number of baseball tournaments, say there's a concert in the park that night, and there's a concert at Hollywood Theater. Our numbers have now swollen to 100,000 people in our village. How do we police that when we're so understaffed? We do it by mandatory overtime. That's hurting our police officers. They're being forced to work when it should be their days off. You're putting more pressure on them. We're setting them up to fail.
I think these are things that everybody's aware of. You know, obviously there's benefits to not having people work overtime, and it's something that we're looking at, but it is, again, it's a process, and it's going to be by the consensus of the board, but we're working towards it. You know, but tonight we're just talking about this insurance thing, and is there the possibility of saving money while at the same time keeping the guys that you have now at the same, you know, we can do that, and that's kind of where we're going.
And I appreciate that. I truly do. And I understand why you're doing it. I just don't agree with it right now. I think we need to wait a year and need to focus on finding the money. And I know that kind of falls to Brad. Sorry. Sorry, Brad. But I just think we have to step it up. We have to look to cut wherever we can, cut non-essential things. And I just believe that this could wait a year, whatever the cost is, to save every penny we can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Am I next?
Sure.
I'd like to open the regular meeting of the Economic Development and Marketing Committee.
Make a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2, consider the approval of the minutes of the regular Economic Development and Marketing Committee meeting held on January 23rd, 2018.
So
Have a
moved.
motion? Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3, discuss Cook County Class 7 boundaries. Patrick, would you like to discuss the wonderful 159th at Harlem, 183rd in LaGrange, the two properties in question, or start from the top with the 7A, 7Bs?
Sure. So what we know is that in order to get a reclassification done in the Cook County area, you have to be in one of three areas. You've got Bremen Township, Rich Township, and we do have a special designated area over on Duvan Drive. And that will allow us to do a reclassification, which we've done in the past for Hillwood's property and most recently over by Joy E. And what that does is gives a reclassification for 12 years, which lowers the property taxes on our commercial buildings 60% when compared to Will County. I started about a year ago, and right off the bat, one of the goals put on my plate was to try to fill the Kmart, the vacant Kmart, and also the Brixmor across the street. We have seen some development in the area. Sam's, luckily our Sam's has reinvested. There has been the closing of 5 Sam's around the area. Also, Aldi moved into a bigger space. But other than that, if you're looking around the area, there's a lot of vacancy up there, and trying to come up with some kind of an incentive program in order to encourage development, we contacted the county assessor to talk about what it would take to do Class 7s. And one of the requirements of a Class 7 is it has to be a special designated area, and it's a special designation that actually a municipality can do. So what we have done in the past is we came here, asked your permission to pursue this. Then we took it over to the ECC to identify different areas in Tinley Park that we could actually do as a special designation. And 2 of them came up, and one of them is the Brixmor northern area of Harlem. And then also down on the Grange, we've had a lot of interest from developers, but because of how close it is to Will County just looks more enticing. And so if you look at an aerial of Tinley Park and you look at 183rd at Harlem, you'll notice the bulk of the Will County area is all developed, where the northern Cook County side is not. So we have came back with these 2 designated areas that we would like to assume take to the county level and work with our attorney, Mr. Conley, to find out how we can designate these and have these available for Class 7 designations moving forward.
Thank you, Patrick. So we're looking to, just the Economic Development Commission had several ideas besides these 2, I understand, and they were the most viable options.
Yes, these are the
Those
2
are
that
the-
were most in need.
Yeah.
And the one that is up on Harlem, those are all just by parcel. And you'll notice that Sam's and the new Aldi are not in there. They have their own individual parcels.
Are those the only 2 out, Pat?
Yes.
That's it?
Yeah, those are the only 2 that are out of it.
Okay.
Everything
Is that
else
spike strip still there?
Yes, the spite strip.
What are we gonna do with
You
that?
can actually see it wrap around Aldi itself. It's going to have to, if this goes through, it could probably have some kind of collaboration with Kmart and Aldi to get that combined somehow. But right now, if you're going to invest in it, I'm not sure why you would invest a commercial property in this area since you're going to pay 60% higher than it is down on the south side of town. So retail in this area is just struggling right now. And so if anyone makes any improvements, it's the improvements to the property that'll get that 60% abatement, not the current bill.
Nice.
And I don't know if there's any of the areas that you'd want to take out or add on, but these are the areas that I see as probably the most needed as for some kind of improvement. There are vacancies in it. We did include
I
Centennial
mean,
Bowl.
that's the area that's really having a hard
It's
time
hit or
right
miss
now.
all
Yeah,
through there.
absolutely, the Kmart and the TJ Maxx vacancy out of that plaza.
Yes.
Is there anything new in there? There's nothing.
That side where Waltz is, a couple
Yeah.
businesses have closed, and it's been a while. Why are these 2 buildings left out that are,
Those are the recent, Sam's just invested a lot of money, so that's their individual parcel, and then Aldi too just invested quite a bit of money. And so one of the qualifications that you have to prove is that the property values are going down, and everyone else's.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard for them to do that.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to. It would probably mix up the overall assessment. But everybody else's, I know, are going down.
I just think those are 2 good areas. That was nice that we,
Yeah, they're
good job
fantastic.
putting those 2 together.
They did a good job for us.
So I saw the next steps.
The other key with designating these areas is that, one, if we approve a Class 7 petition, the county's approval is automatic. Whereas if we didn't do this, they'd have to submit for an approval from us and then submit go through a separate process with the Cook County.
So they only have to do the one process.
So now, this would simplify that they only have to do one process.
Okay. And does this, on 183rd, Pat, that takes it all the way, what's that street all the way to the right side of that map? On the 183rd?
White Egret, is that this one here?
Yeah.
So yeah, White Eagle splits it, and that is the drive that you use to get down to the other two hotels.
Okay.
Yeah, Cook County and Will County actually follow the old 183rd, so it's everything that's north of there.
Okay, okay.
So is water and sewer all ready to go on both sides?
It surrounds it, but not in it.
Okay. Depending on the development that Patrick will attract.
We can get it there.
We can get it there, yeah. It's close, but it's not what you would call shovel-ready, but it's in the area.
And that takes that whole area right around the.
That's perfect, though.
Convention center down there.
It's better there's nothing there.
Is that tied up?
Any questions from the board?
Nope.
I'd like to make a motion to move this to the March 6th board meeting
I'll make a
for
motion.
village approval of these two designated areas.
I'll make a motion.
Did you move, he seconded?
Hold 1 second, trustees.
Wait.
Pat, do we need board action on this? What do you need approved by the board?
The Class 7.
That these are going to be the designated areas that we're choosing, and so we'll have to get legal descriptions of these.
So we could just go to Cook County.
Yeah,
Right.
so what's going to happen, there's going to be a process we're going to have to undertake. So there's going to have to be reports done where we qualify these things, and we're working with Pat and the county to do that. I guess, I don't know that there's anything for the board to do at this time. I guess if you want to take it up to the full board, have them approve the areas, I'd be okay, this committee, with your blessing, you just, Pat and I, to move forward with the county. Ultimately, there'll be reports for the full board to approve, but there's another step here. I mean, on the 6th, we won't be able to designate these as Class 7 on the 6th. There's still work to be done.
We thought the guys had to vote on all this with us, the two areas.
If you vote at the board meeting
All
on the
6 of us
6th,
vote on these two areas.
but it's not ready to be voted on by the board, unless, Pat, I'm missing something.
Well, no, this does it before a project.
we
But we just want to make sure that
move
these
forward?
are the areas, and I don't have extra parcels or other parcels need to be added. So if these are the areas that we're good to go,
And you
then we
just move to the next step of
we'll go
going
to the
through the
next step and
process.
get the legals done and start working with Cook County.
I think
you guys.
direction from this board is enough for that. I mean, but if you guys want to take it to the full board, that's fine.
Oh, well, that's
I
fine.
think certainly committee level, and then we'll do. the
We'll approve in our
reports.
committee then. We're
Yeah,
good.
we'll do the reports, and then that'll go to the full board.
Very good. I misunderstood. I thought we were supposed to send it forward to everyone. We good?
Yep, unless there's any objection, we'll move forward and get these done for you. trustees.
Thank
Maybe-
you.
Maybe let them know what's going on in case they have an objection, they could raise it.
If you guys want to take it to the full board, that's fine.
Well,
I
I'm
was just trying
just
to
saying.
move it forward. Okay.
Okay, we'll do. All right. Item number 4, discuss integration of Main Street Commission into the Economic Commercial Commission. The Main Street Commission and Economic Commercial Commission were very redundant. At a previous meeting I had discussed possibly combining them. They do have quite a few idiosyncrasies. Each part had 4 members are property owners in the Main Street Commission. 1 member is a historic district. Let me get that correct. I'm trying to get the exact title of this person. And I'm not sure who that is. Dave, do you have any insight into that?
Member of
The Main Street Commission?
yes.
It has a member of the historical district? Who might that be?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, is there any way staff can review these and come up with a list of a combination of some sort? Instead of just
Yeah,
asking us?
I think the question is.
Will it become a subcommittee, or how
I
many
mean-
commissioners will be added to the Main Street when we're not really clear about what the entire package will be?
So I think the direction is to make it a subcommittee, and I guess the question is, do we want to do this as like 5 members, 7 members?
For me, reading through this, I
Yeah.
would just want to make sure that we tie into the different aspects of residential,
Uh-huh.
business, and then it's downtown is the other piece of this thing. So the key element is having some type of members that kind of fit all of those criteria.
Yeah.
You know, if we're gonna take and put the two together, we want a combination of people that really meet the criteria of the village. At least that's how I see it. I mean, who those members are now, I read through this, and I know in the MSC commissioners, I think you got 3 left, if I read it right.
Yes.
And, you know, and some of those are individuals that have downtown interest,
Right.
you know, where, you know.
They don't have to be residents.
Right, but the other part of it is you would want businesses that are in other parts of the village. You know, we have a lot of businesses in different parts, and then we have the downtown piece of this.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, from my view, that we have some type of relationship of all the areas.
You're not, there's not going to be anybody that's going to be kicked off or upset.
No, they would just be combined,
That was
and
kind of concerned.
the way the flow is, if we're going to do the Oak Park playbook, then Main Street only has 3 people, and there's really no way to verify where the funds are going for that. If they're all Main Street commissioners and they're all doing, I mean, it's going to go to the board eventually for each of those grants. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yes, it is.
So that was a reason that I thought it would be less of a conflict of interest if there were people from Main Street and economic development all together.
Sounds fine to me.
But I don't know who the historic district member is, and
If all the members, I mean, the big thing is we've got volunteers coming to help. You want them to be as effective and efficient and feeling like they're part of something good.
make a quorum, and
Yeah. Especially if one of them's only got 3 members, it's, makes sense.
yeah.
So are we going to change, I saw in here, when I read through it, that the ordinance calls for X amount of members.
Right.
So what we'll do, if we combine the two, is we'll change that for the amount of members we would have for the two together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend, how much does ECC have right now? 7 members? Is that what?
Well, it's probably closer to
9 or 10. I don't think you want to keep the Main Street the same, because then you're talking about
17
9.
members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I
Well,
just-
it's 10 plus 3, that's 13.
No, what Dave's saying,
What are you
because
saying,
if you
Dave?
had 7 from the MSC, which you only have 3 right now,
Right.
and their ordinance requires 7.
Well, we could change the ordinance. I think that's the whole point
that's
of
what
it,
I'm saying.
right?
I don't think you should have
Yeah.
7 on MSC. You know,
Okay.
Right.
13's a lot for a
Yeah.
commission, a lot. So remember that.
But this commission's going to have a responsibility for a few bigger pieces now, because they really are tying in to all the businesses across the town. They're tying into the downtown area.
Yeah, clearly.
And then they're reviewing all of the incentive signs and facets and all the things that are coming through, so.
My only thought with, if you go with 13, they'll need 7 here every time to have a meeting. You know, they'll need 7 to have a quorum,
point.
and it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll see sometimes with planning boards that are 9, I mean, sometimes they'll struggle to get 5. you
Is that
know.
our highest one, planning?
That I know. Most towns, planning is usually the most,
Yeah.
with 9.
Is
So-
it a possibility to have associate members sometimes?
absolutely. You could have-
If there's
There's a
not
way to do
quorum,
that.
they could-
Yeah, the branding has
And that way you'd have more
6
people
associates.
involved.
Branding does.
Yeah.
There's a way to do that. Yep.
Something to consider.
So, I mean, if you want ECC and MSC to consider everything,
Combined together with associate
then-
members.
Okay, then there's really not even a need to have a subcommittee.
Right.
I mean, if they're all going to have the same duties.
That's the reason why I was asking the question earlier,
Yeah,
was because
okay.
it would be, I think, wouldn't it be easier to have just a set amount of members and then have some associate members?
I think so. That way if
And then
somebody
go to
can't
Pat's
come, they
point
could.
that you don't want too many to make sure you do have the quorum?
Yep.
And then we've got people from all of the, historic district, property business owners, non-residents, citizens.
Right.
All economic is all citizens, I believe.
But the only question I had is, I know under the I think it's MSC, they did go out to 3 or 4 business owners a little while ago and asked them to be on it. So the question is, if you have X amount now, and you've gone out and asked other people, the key element is, what number do you want to be at?
Some people are happy.
I thought that's
to-
what we,
Right.
Well, 13's uneven, so.
Yeah, I would,
But then you'd have to have 7 for a quorum.
7.
That's what Pat's saying.
and 13's just not that, it's an unlucky number, not that anybody's.
I think it's lucky.
I would,
So you want to do one commission, you want to do like 9 committee members and like 4 associates or something like
Are
that?
you okay with that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, and no subcommittees? I mean, unless obviously they could create a subcommittee, but,
Less
okay.
meetings,
I don't think that's more work and,
less meetings.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay.
We're good.
You need a recommendation for that?
We'll need to obviously change
Yes.
a couple ordinances for that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Are you good with, should I
Yeah,
just-
I don't know if we could have it for the 6th. We could have it for the 20th. If that
20th?
works. If there, I mean, unless there's, is this?
no, we're in no hurry for anything else.
Any urgency to get it done on the 6th? Okay.
Main Street hasn't met in a year, and
Oh,
DCC, I think, just met, right? So I don't, yeah.
So it'd be good
I
to
mean,
get
we have
everyone-
time.
Yeah,
Good
so
to
if
get
we
'em together
just
and
do a
get it going.
motion, you know, to
I'll make a motion to
direct us.
direct Pat to take it to the board on March 20th. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, March 20th.
Thank you.
And to combine the two,
Playbook thing.
MSC and ECC, into one committee with members and associate members.
Perfect.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Item number 5, review contract with the Tinley Park Convention Center for Discover Tinley event.
Okay, this is an annual contract. It's really rather functory, something we would typically put on the consent agenda. We have the Discover Tinley event and basically room rental fees, food and equipment. It's slightly over the manager's limit, so it's, would be on the agenda for next board meeting, $21,433.49. And again, it's an estimate of charges because we don't necessarily know what the final food costs are going to be, but it's close to what it's been.
Is that in line with the past costs? I mean,
It's been going up a little bit more each year.
And Dave, just on the agreement, I had a chance today to look at it. I talked to Don on a few parts of it. I just wanted to maybe just run a couple things by you on it.
Okay.
On just the contract portion of it.
Okay.
There was 3 things in there that I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that we were a little bit comfortable with, and before it goes up to the board,
All right.
okay?
Do you have a vendor count so far?
I don't know that. I can find that out for you, so. yeah.
Just review it, right? No action has to be taken. You had no action on it, do you?
No, I was comfortable with it as is.
Okay.
Any questions from Michael?
If you guys are good with it, move it up to the board.
Okay, so up to the board then.
I thought you wanted to look at 2 things on there with Donald.
Yeah, I can. I did it already with Don.
Oh, you
Just
did?
gotta go over it with Dave. So you can move it up to the board.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move the contract for the Discover Tinley 2018 rental of the convention center to the board meeting for
Second.
March 6th.
You second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Item number 6, receive comments from the public. The public's talking. Any comments? I'd like to adjourn the Economic Development and Marketing Committee.
So moved, or?
I'll
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like to call the Administrative and Legal Committee to order. Roll call, please. Or
Trustee
aye?
Berg?
You guys should just call them to order and go right in.
All right, very good. Just kind of housekeeping, I got a correspondence from the clerk. She's asking us to review the ordinance for the Queen of Hearts raffles and stuff like that. Has anybody got a problem with putting that on our next agenda?
I have no problem.
No.
Very good. Just,
What's the,
Does everybody know what that is?
Yeah, I know what it is.
They're
I know.
really blowing up everywhere. A
I
lot
know.
of the VFW halls, a lot of,
they're not for small money either.
no, they're.
well, then I don't know if it's okay to discuss. We've got a $75,000 cap, I guess, 3 organizations.
Yeah, it's our regular meeting. You can discuss
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Where are we at, Mike? 75,000?
75 is our current cap.
Those are over.
So the problem is, once it goes over, they're technically in violation of our code. So I think the clerk has got some correspondence from some local establishment owners asking that the number be moved up. So I think that's really what you guys need to consider.
And
I mean,
it's kind of a policy decision.
And if you move it up, you're not moving it up small potatoes, you're gonna have to move it up to, because
You're gonna move it
I
up-
just know what the one at the VFW is right now.
Right.
You know,
Oh.
it's not small.
Wow.
So, yeah, you remember if in Morris, this all got triggered, there was a big one in
Oh,
Morris.
yeah.
That was like over $1 million, and it turned out that someone looked at their village raffle code and it said like 50 grand. And so
Wow.
the whole thing kind of went up in smoke, but I
So
think-
we'll put it under your committee next meeting, Mike?
I think that's
Does it
probably
have to,
where it
well,
ought
the
to be,
question, the
right?
worry I would have is over the period of that time frame. You know, this still is going on every week.
I think from what I understand, the last one that they had, it was a $70,000 prize. They're pushing the limits. They're looking to potentially increase it. So, I mean, it's got to start someplace.
As much as
I don't know
100?
where it's at.
Okay.
Right now,
I
we're
mean,
at
are you saying
75.
you want to do something before that?
Well, I mean, they're out of, if it's over 75, they're out of ordinance, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So if they are out of ordinance, you know, just a question I would ask is, you know,
Did this just come up today?
It's a
yeah,
problem.
it just came up today.
Okay.
Here's what I'd recommend. I think we keep it in committee with your guys' blessing. If we get into a situation where, because I don't know, I guess maybe let us check where, if there's any local ones in town.
We should
If-
check and see where they're at.
If we get into a situation where it's a problem, with your guys' blessing, can we bring it right to the board, if it had to be? You
Yes,
know,
I
at
think
least
that-
for you guys, at least for the whole board to talk about. You know, I don't know if we're there yet. Let us check, and if we feel like we have to do it, one way or the other, because you guys may say as a board, no, 70, that's all we want, 75,000 is enough for us, and then they have to stop the raffles at 75. But maybe as a board, you say, we don't care, we want to.
I mean, it's really more of a policy
It
issue
is.
than it is of
Clearly.
a legal issue.
The worry I'm okay with whatever way we do it. The worry I have is, in some of these raffles right now, they're down to 2, 3, 4 tickets. And it's very popular right now, because there's only 2 or 3 left. So they're being inundated with people, and that dollar amount's going up. So the big question is just how we.
It's just like the lottery.
Yeah,
Right, so you guys, so
Yeah.
it's not on your agenda tonight, you can't vote on it, but.
we should maybe think about taking it to the board if they are over
But I
that
just
number.
if
You
I,
wanna just send
just so
it
you know,
right up? I
my
mean,
thought would be if
it's
there
not
is an
actually
emergency
anything.
where it needs to go up, you know, just so the board knows, I think that would be what I'd recommend, and with Dave and the clerk's office, is that if there's an emergency, we bring it right to the board.
That'd be
for-
great.
To talk.
That'd be
Okay?
great.
So whether you guys want to increase it
Well,
or
we
not.
can't really decide anything today because it's
No,
not
we
on the
can't, but I
agenda,
guess
so.
that's what I would recommend. If it happens, you'll see it at the full board at your.
Next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention and let them know where they wanted to do it.
Thank you.
The second item of
Mike,
business
you have a
is,
question?
It is, the one at the VFW is well over $100,000.
Yeah, that's what I said.
There's only 3 cars.
That's the one I'm talking
Yeah, I
about.
wanna say it's-
Wasn't it like
is.
120?
Is it like 100?
120 or
I
something?
thought you said it was 70,000.
I think is the last I heard.
Last week, I thought it was over 110, 120,000 is what I heard. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I
No,
heard.
it is. I was just looking it up.
When are they going to have to pay out?
That's why I'm asking them
Is
to bring it right to the
I'm
board.
sorry?
When will they, I'm sorry,
They got
didn't
it
mean to interrupt.
again tomorrow night, and like they're saying, there's only 3 cards left, so it's getting packed with people because
Yeah,
there's
more
only
and
3
more.
cards left.
when do they pay out, draw, or whatever it
When
is that
the
they
card's
do?
picked.
It depends on who wins.
Yeah.
No, but will it be before our next board meeting, or?
Well, it could be tomorrow, Mike.
It's either-
Oh,
is
geez.
it tomorrow or Thursday?
I thought it was Wednesday nights.
Oh, okay, so it's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
So it's not a time.
So what
certain.
happens if the person's name gets pulled and there's 3 cards left, if he pulls it and wins, whatever the amount is the winner. So, and we know, today that they're over 100,000.
Why don't we put it on your next, why don't I put it on the next board meeting?
That'd be
me
great.
and the manager, at least for a first reading for the whole board to talk about.
Is that
I know
okay?
you guys-
Yeah, that's
you guys-
cool, 'cause we don't
You guys
know.
can't vote on it, but
It's
that's
too
what
late now
I
to
would
rope this
recommend.
one in.
Because if it's only gonna be 75,000, then we're gonna have to figure that out, the VFW, but
Yeah, I was unaware it was that high, I'd heard.
I didn't know it was that
So when you brought it up right away, because I know people go
Okay.
every week now.
There's 3 left now.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
So we'll take care of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, the next item of business is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item of business is discuss section 2.9 of the personnel manual pertaining to employment of relatives. I got a couple questions on this before we get going. Is anybody going to lose their job because of this ordinance? I mean, it's prohibiting certain people?
No, this is basically only dealing with, kind of an immediate supervision of a relative, so no, there's not any.
Is there anybody in a position that would be affected now?
No, there would be nobody there's no relatives directly supervising other employees right now.
So this is just a prospective type of a thing that we're voting on to
Yeah,
prevent
it would
from
essentially, the code says it discourages it, or I think the language is it's discourages, it's just making it a stronger. It goes from discourage to
Trustee-
And here's a question I have with it. I have a couple
Yeah.
of questions.
Right.
Supervised, how do we determine that definition? So I know with the fire department, in the past, you've had, a son follow his father, or father follow, his uncle, or whatever. The question I just have, how far do we take it up? Is it the guy that immediately is a supervisor? Or is it the chief, or is it the person, all the supervisors above him? How do we view that in this case?
Well, somebody's
I think
in
if
the
we do it,
supervisory
exclude
chain.
fire
Huh?
department.
If somebody's in the supervisory chain.
Okay.
I think it's one of those
Yeah.
issues, if I could jump in. So we thought this would be, when we looked at this code, and it's not code, it's in your personnel manual. So when we looked at it, the language of, we discourage it, we thought we could make it stronger, we thought it'd be easy. All these types of questions kind of popped up after that. The question Trustee Mangan asked is a good one. I think, it's open to some interpretation. The fire department and the police department, I think there's a lot of family bonds there. If somebody comes up through civil service, that was raised as a problem. So I think this was one of those, there was a lot more work than we thought in it. We have to think it out more. I don't know how often it's come up I don't know how long it's been in that policy book and for how many years.
I just would hate to see kids that are following in their father's footsteps that decide to be a policeman or fireman in our town.
Yeah.
Go through the process of the civil service to get it, and then not be able to be hired because one of their relatives are a supervisor.
Well, the fire
I never thought
department
about
is
someone
a
getting married on the
volunteer
job.
department. That,
Huh?
It's only,
My take was, what about somebody getting married here?
well, it would only
Then
be,
you become relatives.
Yeah, you could hire a police officer, there could be a sergeant. If that sergeant's not directly supervising, it's not an issue. This is becoming more and more common, I would say, in a lot of municipalities. It's just, I don't think you want to put people in a position where you've got somebody having to make a decision on a performance evaluation and discipline action.
That part I
think
agree
it's-
with.
it's-
I mean,
it's-
that
I think
part
it's
I
just,
totally understand.
and they may do a good job at it, but I think it's as much as it's a perception problem. And so it wouldn't mean that somebody would pass a civil service test, and just because they have a relative that's a supervisor in the department, that they couldn't work. You just couldn't have,
Different shift.
just my example, you got a sergeant, that guy can't be on that sergeant shift, as one example. Couldn't have a deputy chief working for the police chief.
so Pat, what are the reasons for and against it? I think you'd have to exclude the fire department, because if there's, 3 ladder trucks out there and, who's directing who, you don't want that to be a problem.
I don't think it goes to that level. Like, if you're on a fire and somebody has control of the fire, I think Dave explained it well. It's meant for your immediate supervisor to put to get both parties out of a tough position. It would obviously be tough to be the direct supervisor of an immediate family member. I agree, they are becoming more common. And we looked at it, do we pull out the fire department, do we pull out the police department? When we start pulling out, making exceptions, and I can't remember, I think we talked about this in one of the ordinances we did last time, we're not gonna get them all. Something's gonna come up that we didn't think about. Oh, wait, but his uncle worked here for 100 years, and there's something we're gonna miss. If you want to protect ourselves to allow for, give the village and the administration an opportunity to recognize special situations, instead of trying to accept everything, I think we have similar language, and we're not there yet. We still need to work on it, but maybe put a waiver in, for the village manager in special circumstances. If there's something, again, you feel, hey, this is not going to be a problem, but it violates the code, let the manager, and then you guys vote on it or something like that. I think that's probably better than trying to think of every situation. The fire department's out. Well, then the police department should be out. Well, what about public works? And once we try to do exceptions.
I like that idea. And then there's accountability because we knew about it and we waived it.
Yes.
Yeah. I
But
think
the other
that's-
thing is, the word immediate is key to me here. That's what's got me,
Yeah.
if we decide to do it, a little bit more comfortable. But, I just don't want to have to be in a room here where someone's saying, well, someone's working over here, and really his supervisor's the 3 guys up, and it's being looked at. That's not the purpose of this.
Yeah, let's flush that a little bit.
If we flush it that says it's its immediate supervisor, totally get it. But I just want to make sure that we're not excluding things that have happened in the past that are real positive with, people following in footsteps.
I think Dave and I have pretty good direction from you guys. Can we take a crack at it, bring it back to your next committee meeting for, the final version?
Yeah, I'm
for you?
fine with
Yeah.
that. I'd like to
Okay.
see the final
Thank you.
before it goes.
We'll do that based on your comments tonight. Thank you.
All right, we have one more, and that's discuss the ethics code. This has been knocking around for a little while. I think it was probably a month ago the clerk suggested we were getting inundated with complaints. I think at the last meeting, the board expressed a preference that we'd like somebody other than us deciding who's doing it, and I think you guys have gone out and seen what other villages are doing. We don't want to necessarily be investigating ourselves or deciding who investigates ourselves. The problem is, setting up who's going to do it has been a little trickier than you would think.
I think what they put together here, Mike, there's some good things in here that really are here now. I thought the document had a lot of good pieces to it.
Yeah, so did I.
The key element for me is the quality of individual or the quality of people that would be part of the commission.
100%.
And the only question I would raise, and I'm just raising it, is if we really want the right person, and it's someone that would do the job in the right way, the only idea that I'm thinking in my head is, do we want this guy to do it for nothing? Or would it be smart, based on us, that we have some type of fee for it, not a lot, but something, where that individual that's manning the committee, ties in somehow? Because I firmly believe we want to make sure that it's being done by the right people, and that the people have the background and the knowledge to do this type of work.
Well, I think whoever does it, if you did a committee of citizens, they need somebody to consult with that could give them advice on,
Or the
how
chair
our
of that
ordinance is
committee,
written.
or the chair of that committee is what I'm thinking. I mean, I think there's a lot of good things in this ethics piece, based on, looking at when the complaint comes in, does it meet the criteria?
Right.
I thought Pat's group did a nice job of laying this out. I think to me, it still comes back to the committee.
I was pretty
Having
good
the
with
right
it,
people.
with 1 or 2 tiny exceptions. The committee, though, the way it's selected, as much as we can wash our hands of it as possible, I'd like, but I don't think it could be done. And I think, I'm not convinced we have to compensate anybody. If we are compensating anybody, we just may as well send them to somebody for a threshold test. Do you know what I mean? The lawyer on the wheel.
Well, the lawyer in the wheel is going to be a lot more than an individual that would man a commission.
One would think, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, just based
Yeah.
on the last 3 ethics complaints and what we spent.
I looked at a couple different, villages and kind of what they're doing. Some of them actually have online, if you're interested in being a member of this commission, submit us your information. And then I found a model ethics policy for local ordinances, agencies, that I got from Ohio. And I think the big question is you want an apolitical person who's got no relationship to anybody. And I think you have the language in there that says the person can't be this or that. And then see if we get the people to man it. But
I think
again, I don't know if that's
Pat
going to be
says it-
workable
Pat says
either.
that in here too. I mean, what
Yeah.
the requirements would be.
Yeah.
What did you?
I'm not saying that we pick them. All I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is to get the right people. You don't want to, in the last couple of meetings, we talked about clergymen and people like that. That would be great. But
Right.
we also want people that understand this.
Right.
We want people that have backgrounds in it, you know, people that might have been, you know, involved in law enforcement and other things that really could give it a spin at that, make sure that they are going through the checks and balances that need to be done here.
100% agree. If there was a completely trustworthy person that knew what they were doing, that'd be perfect. The trick is, in the world we live in, you know, some people are voting for this party and not that party, and we're just holding these seats now. Down the road, there may be a split down the middle, and, you know, one half of the board may be saying to the other half of the board, we're filing an ethics complaint about what you're doing, and it could just be used the wrong way. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just real quick, did anything from the sheriffs? I know somebody was going to check with them.
Yeah, actually, I did talk to the sheriff's office there. I'm waiting to get back. I talked to their Office of Professional Regulation. You know, if we remember, a couple of years back, the sheriff's office started with, they're hired for Inspector General for the Buckeye. That particular unit was disbanded. So OPR is looking into some information, and they're supposed to get back.
From what I know of that office, Trustee Panino, I would find it unlikely that they would take this on. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I kind of thought that might be the case, but, you know, it's
So-
it's a free potential independent source.
Why would we go to a third party out of town?
Yeah.
Which-
So I guess, well, if you guys had a chance, so I put together that little table for you.
Yeah, I like the table. I
guess
like
what
the Park Ridge.
What I wanted to do was show you how varied, you know, how many ways there are to skin this cat, for lack of a better term. I mean, literally every town does it differently. You know, so I think, but where this has all started as, you know, and we've gone, I think the first day, you know, my firm was hired here as village attorneys, you know, Pat Ray came to us, said, everybody's confused about our ethics code, we need to work on it. So, I mean, we've been working on it, the entire ethics code for a long time, and I have an opinion, I think every town should. They're kind of living and breathing things. Things change, and, you know, and everybody needs to be playing by the same set of rules. So lately, what we've been looking at is, you know, the enforcement and some of the disclosure stuff. That's where we're at now. So, you know, again, the key points of what we put together for you, at least as that initial draft, is, you know, we got to get real clear on, you know, our threshold, you know, what you expect in a complaint, what you need to see in a complaint.
I thought that was really put together well.
Yeah, and it needs to be clear for the board, for the staff, and for the public.
For everyone to know.
For everybody to know, you know, what's going on, because I think confusion has led to some problems here. So that's part one. And then where do you go to, you know, obviously you know, we've had some, you know, the cost of sending these to outside attorneys has certainly gone up. You know, you guys have seen it. You know, attorneys are going to cost money. That's, you know, unfortunately, not to besmirch my own profession, but that's what they do. And
The only other question I had on it, Pat, is when the committee did go through the process, and if there was any question, I looked at this and just wondered what would be the next steps, and what you had in here, you know,
Yeah.
as far as what was going on. I don't know, you know, if there was any, quote, representation or anything that was not right, you know, today, the attorney, it goes to X, right? And I just wondered, you know, from our view, just, that was the only part of this as we're going through it. Because honestly, I thought that 75% of this
Yeah.
could lead into a nice layout for our ethics code.
yeah, I guess I think I left that blank there.
Yeah.
Thinking that we would keep that the same, the options, the committee, they could
Do the same thing.
They
as
could do the same thing.
Okay.
They could file, you know, if they felt warranted, they could file an ordinance violation, or, you know, if they believe there was, you know, any kind of state law problems, turn it over to the
Okay.
appropriate state authority.
And that's what I want to make sure.
Yeah, that's why, so if it's not in there, you know, I would say that,
That would be the same two
yeah,
things.
keep it the same as what we have.
Okay.
Agreed. So, and then if you guys, obviously, if you remember, this plays into, was it last Tuesday, you know, we put the temporary stay on the ethics complaints, so, you know, we do have some time with this. I think it was, you know, 90 days, you know, is what I kind of gave us to get this done, so,
But the big key for me is 90 days could be hard if we decide that we have to get a
Oh,
committee.
it's, yeah, 90 days is
Be very
is
short.
tight, agreed. So I think that's step one. I think if not tonight, in the very near future, we need to decide if you want the committee and, the appointment of the committee. I don't know how you get around having the mayor and the board appoint them. I mean, I know, Mike, you bring the point, well, how?
That's what a committee is.
At some point, you guys are gonna have to appoint them.
I don't know how we get
Yeah.
around it either. The question is, I guess, I don't want them to be, I appointed you,
Yeah.
that's the big thing that I'm worried about, and I guess the way to handle that would be to have, the board members themselves each appoint one, and then the mayor approve them or whatever. You know what I mean? That way it's not, somewhat of a balance. I kind of showed you that Ohio thing and how that worked.
I think you go out and you bring people, and then the board as a whole would
Just the
vote
board as a whole
Yeah,
votes
would
on it?
vote on it and say, do we agree that this person fits the criteria for the committee? And I think then everyone's voting as a group. It isn't an individual thing, and it's not some individual that you're bringing or someone else is bringing. It's, the responsibility of,
And then we're accountable because the guys that we voted for are,
that's going to be the
and then
committee.
it's going to
And
come
they got a
back to
one-year
us.
term or a two-year term, based on what Pat's saying.
Maybe
They're
rotating
staggering.
terms,
So
like he's
it'll
saying,
stagger. So
Yeah.
you'll have that staggered rotation of it, and then you can reappoint them, based on what Pat's saying here. You can reappoint them, but
I like that.
But then,
Directly to the
you're
board,
gonna
or-
need, I think going back to what trustee Mangan talked about earlier, if that's a resident-based or clergy-based community, whatever base committee is, they're going to need help, whether it be legal help,
Yeah.
somebody who's retired, they're going to need some time, because some of these decisions will come down to pretty legal, legal type,
They
motion
need
to
somebody to
dismiss
consult with
decisions.
if they're not attorneys, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, what about this retired judge or adjudicator? Is that very costly also? I like this Park Ridge model. That was my favorite.
Yeah, I thought it was well thought out. I mean, I don't, as I've told you guys, I prefer, well, I guess not, but
Or maybe
I thought it was a well thought out model. I did. You can tell they thought it out.
the Park
And
Ridge.
obviously a retired judge, or somebody who used to be, they obviously wanted somebody who's been involved as a former, a state's attorney or a former assistant U.S. attorney or a current administrative adjudicator. All those people are used to dealing with this kind of stuff. So again, what I think what Mike
it
was
hard to
saying is,
find
so you
someone?
have the committee, and if you have somebody like that, is that person just going to be doing all the work anyway? Right? So I wonder, do you need the committee at that point? I don't know.
Why don't we-
Do you have somebody like that in town? I don't know. Maybe you do.
We don't know.
I'd
We'll try to
prefer
find
like
out, I
a-
guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd prefer like a consensus than one person.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and
but
that's a good point too.
I mean, do you want to start with one idea? If it doesn't work well, we could always modify it.
we got 90 days.
Yeah,
We got to move.
yeah.
So we got to
Well,
make a
maybe
decision.
the Park Ridge
one-
I can say this, based on what I've seen today and what I read, a good portion of this ethics code has a lot of merit to it.
Yeah.
I think what we now got to decide on is, we have to kind of give direction to start moving in some direction.
On the code, I'm pretty good. I got like one or two little minor things I'm not, I got problems with, but the committee to me was the main thing. Is it a committee and who's on it? And
And the
Who do
question
they-
is
who do they
it 5
go
people,
to
is
for
it 3
advice?
people, is it, whatever?
yeah, I'm fine with the
Maybe the
5.
committee
It's just
comes
a matter of how
back with
you.
the talent that we get.
Yeah.
If we get if we get a good talent and it's 3 or 4 people that have backgrounds that are very good at it, you might not have to need 5. You might need 3 or 4.
Can we move forward with that?
Sure. If you
Yeah, I'm
guys wanna
fine
get-
with that.
Do you want me to weave in the committee structure? What about, would you give them the authority to seek either legal advice or, well, I guess it would be legal.
They could make
That's-
their own bylaws on how they wanted to do it.
That's what I mean, if they come up with it, well, why don't we start there? Let me weave in the committee structure. 3-person?
I just think to try to get 5 people from the communities could be tough for these guys.
3.
Sure.
3 would, let's
Could
start
we
with
make
3.
it a flexible
We get
3
3
or
or 4.
5, depending on how many we
Yeah,
get?
you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're still in draft form, so
Sure.
let me weave that in a little bit to what we have. Mike, sounds like you have some comments. I'm sure
The
you guys
only
might
other-
have some.
The only
nits on
other
your-
things I had was on your language clarifying the contents of the complaint. You've got complaint may not be filed prior to election. Great idea, it needs to be
We
there.
have that in our code. You can't, I think we have 90 days, 180 days, so we already
It's
have
in there
that.
now?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, denying somebody the right to file it was kind of a problem. Now, delaying doing anything with it, I thought was fine, but
Most
say you can't
most
file it.
codes kind of have that stay
Do they?
before an
Okay,
election.
that's
And
fine.
you can imagine why.
For the purposes of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this, based on direct evidence, is that in there now, on number 4? Because, I mean,
No.
not everybody's going to have, I mean, I work in the court system, and sometimes anybody could say anybody, and it screws up somebody's life. And I'd love to see direct evidence. The problem is, how are they going to get direct evidence of things? And you want problems to be investigated, especially if we got a committee now. Do you get what I'm saying? Or
I
some
do.
threshold of hard facts instead of just allegations. That was really the only other.
Well, I'll look at that, Mike, see if that, maybe I'll give you some alternate language on that. But let me look at it.
Okay, that was my 2 big ones.
I'm sure if you guys come up with more, email me, call me, you know where to get me. So I'll work in what we talked about tonight, and, we'll try to get a more completed draft for you
I think I
at the
would
next
add
meeting.
something if they did need legal advice, that they would have the opportunity to go
Yeah,
into legal.
yeah, I mean, you have to, you absolutely have to.
I think that would be good.
Yep. So I'll add that in, and we'll get closer to a draft you guys can forward up to the board at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Thanks for
Very good.
doing all
Thank
this,
you.
Pat.
No,
Thanks, Pat.
That was
thank
very
you.
helpful.
Yeah, it was good.
We need to get it resolved, so
We love charts.
we'll keep working.
Love charts.
Received comments from the, is there anything else on the ethics code? Received comments from the public?
Just a really quick question. Much earlier in the conversation, you were talking about the cost of ethics complaints and how they've been rising. And I believe you said that you saw what the cost of 3 of the ethics complaints were?
Not, of 2, we asked the question back on how much some of the costs were on some of those, just to kind of see what the costs were. And I know one that I can tell you was right around $9,000.
None was 9, yeah.
$9,000, and then the other one, and off the top of my head, I want to say 11, right, or 10 or 11, but, don't hold me to that one, because that
Okay.
one was, it
Just-
was right in that
I was
range.
just curious, that's all. I
Yeah.
hadn't seen anything.
And that's what caused us the concerns that we have.
Oh,
is-
absolutely.
Because in some cases, it was the hourly, and then the amount of people they
Right.
talked to. We had some
Discovery.
concerns with that, the discovery.
Right,
piece.
absolutely.
It all adds up.
Discovery.
100%
Crazy.
understand
And
and
there were a
agree.
lot that came in
I
fast and
just
furious, and you
wanted
didn't
to know
know
how much.
there was an
Yeah,
ad.
and I don't know the new ones, what they are. I mean,
We haven't got the latest one, but.
we haven't got the latest one, because that could be.
I'm sure it'll be in that ballpark.
Yeah.
You haven't got the bill for one that
The
recently
one that was
came?
just posted a week or so ago now.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Can anybody tell me how many ethics complaints are out there? I mean, I've just lost track.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if anybody
I wouldn't even be able
knows.
to tell you, honestly.
There's 6 or 7, they're all
Yeah.
in different stages, some are done, some are.
And then some are, and Pat, the last two were held, right?
Yep.
They're on stay,
So
They're on a stay.
No,
those
they
2
were not
are in
sent.
addition to the
They were
6
not
or
forwarded
7?
on.
They were not forwarded
not
on.
forwarded.
The last 2.
They haven't been forwarded to an independent attorney?
There are 2 that have not, correct.
Okay. But are those 2 in addition to the 6 or 7?
No, they're.
Right now,
included in that?
there's, how many are with attorneys? Let me see. One, we got an answer on Friday to one, a report on Friday. Hervis has got one. Roach has one. And there's one more that the board hasn't discussed yet. So as many as 3 that would be pending.
Not
Plus
counting
the
those
2.
Then there were 2 more that were not forwarded to an attorney.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else from the public? Anything else from the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I'll just plan on low on Thursday.
Yeah.
So you'll just take me through it.
So we'll send it to you tomorrow. Give everyone-